very strong image within a square crop. I thought this was well presented, well styled. Certainly, I think there was a few gym junkies that were really going around the twist in lockdown, but I thought you've styled this quite well. I would have given a little bit more breathing space on the left hand, my left, where the iPad is, because you've got the negative space on the right hand side, but it's a little bit of a tight crop on that left hand side. But you've placed all the elements beautifully within the image. Interesting. I thought there's a movie, I can't remember what it is, where these dolls sit in the corner and frighten the people in the bedroom. So I thought it was an interesting take on this image. There's a couple of little things that I may have fixed up. Again, it's just my personal eye. The hair of the doll that's up near the top of the chair, I would have taken that out. And on the left-hand side where the doll's dressed, there's only a little bit of a fraction of it peeking out. I either would have got rid of it or extended that dress to balance up that dress, to give a balance of symmetry within your image. I like the detail in the face of this little guy. I thought only a mother could love it, but that's all right. You know, it certainly plays a very important part. I thought it's got some good tonal range with the greens. I would have softened that highlight, and I'm assuming, I could be totally wrong on it, is the body. I would have just toned that down a little bit, not to make that the focal point. Thanks, Ron, because the hero to me is the face, and I think just by a bit of processing in that, that certainly could have brought that face out. I thought this is an interesting leading line. I would have done a square crop just to see what I could come up with on this one, and make those stairs the real feature of it. A couple of little small distractors on the borders that I would have tidied up, but you know, that's an inviting path and a leading, taking you off into thinking, well, where does that lead me to? This one I looked at and I thought, wow, this is pattern overload, but it's pretty cool. I was trying to see whether it was Hosier Lane, because I've been there many a times, but I thought this was a well-handled image, and I certainly like the detail, the three elements, the uneven elements in it. I thought that was really good, and it's an interesting colour palette. I looked at that, and if it is Hosier Lane, that's how Hosier Lane can look in some of the areas. I thought this was an interesting take, and I looked at it and I think I know where it is in Melbourne, been there a few times. My suggestion, I like the neutral palette in the background with the pop. I know when I was in a camera club, you'd always hear the judges say, you've got to have that little bit of red in there. But I thought, just as a suggestion, I would have softened the blur a little bit, particularly in the floor, because I think if it's where I think it is, that would have been a checkered floor, and I think that could have played an element in adding into it. So just, you know, a minor processing that I would have looked at. Interesting. I looked at this image and I could relate very much to it, thinking that we're probably doing all those jobs that we've put off, and now's the time. I thought an interesting take on it, sharp, couple of little distractors on the right hand side, that little black element down near the door handle, and then there's just a little smidge of the yellow on the left hand side. Again, one of the things when I'm processing, I look for border control and the distractors just to take those little elements out. I thought this is a beautifully crafted image, and I can certainly look at it and go, there's detail in there. The tonal range is beautiful, really depicts to me the isolation. It tells a story, and I thought it was well handled. Again, another image that I think tells a story. And I think, you know, if this is relating to isolation, I think for a lot of a lot of people and a lot of kids. The bedroom was the centre of the universe. You know, the book of Harry Potter, I thought, really tells the story. There was a lot of reading. To me, I looked at the images that were hanging down, and I took them as memories. I thought this was a strong image that really had some storytelling in it, and I thought, you know, that was quite inventive of the photographer to do that. Well, you don't often see a golf course certainly deserted like this, and quite interesting looking at it. I would have done one thing that maybe given a little bit of a different view, is flip the image so that you've got the golf hole on your right hand side and it leads you into the image. Because when I first looked at it, I sort of thought, is it a landscape? And then I started to drift around and look, and I realised it was a golf course. But that's, you know, that's again a personal thing, just on an eye. Interesting take, and I sort of looked at the story on this. I thought there could be a hidden story and a hidden message in this, which does make the viewer think about COVID and origins and all of those things. And I thought that was quite an interesting interpretation of the isolation period. Beautiful detail within the fronds, and just a simple image within there. There's a couple of little spots just up on the flower on the right hand side, little dark spots. I just would have taken them out just to tidy up the image. And maybe just the green over on the left hand side, I would have sort of blended in a little bit of brown just to soften that and take that away as a focus, because the orchids are the heroes. Well, you certainly don't see this very often, and I thought that was a good capture, good reflections, and it just depicts, you know, the absence of human in an area that is usually busy, particularly at, you know, any time of day. You'll always find swimmers there. I love these little guys. I think they're cheeky little devils. I thought it was a well-captured image, beautiful detail in the face feathers. You know, I could just sort of see myself standing there and looking at this little guy having his water bath. And I thought that was a cute little image. I love there's a little bit of catchlight in the eye. I thought that was either put in or captured. That was well done. I thought this was interesting. I thought this was a real clever styling, and certainly something different. I thought the depth of field was good, very sharp on your foreground, and your depth of field in your background. So I thought that was a well-crafted image of setting that up. Again, that sharing of a moment in time. And again, I just think it's just a beautiful moment between generations. And I take it from a personal point of view too, looking at some of these images, is that it's that human contact that really plays. And I think this was captured on that well. I thought this was beautiful golden light. It certainly depicts isolation, just no one sitting there. You've got some nice little light coming up there through the trees, and I thought the tonal range was beautiful, just nice golden light. Probably again a little minor detail, but just for me, I look again a little bit harder. And on the right hand side, it looks like a little structure between the two trees. I would have taken that out, because as your eye drifts around, I just picked up, you know, even though it played part of the element, I would have taken that out. I thought this was quirky. I looked at it and I thought, oh gosh, the old Elmo's appearing everywhere. And I looked at the little bears and I thought it was quirky. The only thing that I probably would suggest on it is the shrubbery on the left-hand side. Everything's sharp in focus, and yet that's soft in focus. So you know, if your processing skills were there, I would have just mirror reflected the tree and the brickwork on the right-hand side and put it over to the left to give it a uniform foreground. But I thought that was an interesting, quirky interpretation of these poor guys looking out going, I want to get out. I thought the detail and the colour in the flowers was beautiful. I thought a square crop worked for this one. Sometimes less is more. And I just thought that a beautiful, simple image with a great colour range in it. This is interesting. I tried to sort of think, you know, where was this? Certainly the colours, the blue tones in it were quite a contrast, a strong primary colour, secondary colour within there. The suggestion that I would look at that is on the top left-hand side of the swimsuit, there's a little white mark. I would have taken that out. The ones on the belt, you know, I think that's part of the story. But again, I just would have taken that highlight because your eye gets drawn to that and then you're drifting around, whereas you really want to look at that subject quite strong. Great depth of field, you know, when I see, like, you know, the beautiful nutcrackers over on the right-hand side, sharp in foreground, depth of field. I thought that was well styled and placed, and I thought that was handled. Nice, soft, neutral palette, doesn't need anything else within the colour palette. So I thought it was a beautifully crafted image. Another one who has been experimental in this one. This one is not a prettier face as the other one, you know, but I think that's well captured. What I love in this one is I do love the play of highlights in the hair. I thought that was beautifully done within that. And as I said, that's not easy to capture. Beautifully crafted image. I think the tonal range on this, it really appeals to my colour palette. I thought the use of textures, shapes, all of that worked extremely well. It's a busy image, but it's a simple image and beautifully crafted. The little spiders. Not a fan of the spiders, but that's okay. I looked at this image, a little bit grainy. I think that, you know, either your camera settings weren't right or it was just in your processing within that. I would have maybe gone for a square crop and taken out a little bit more on the right-hand side and just sort of soften a little bit more of those greens down in the foreground to give it that dark, moody look. I thought this really did show isolation. I'm looking at the human story, and I think the human story is very well reflected in here of a grandparent, you know, with a child teaching. I thought it was well styled because to me, when I look at that, it's styled as the placement of the laptop, the wording, you know, I think the facial expression. I do think it's a human element story. The detail in this, beautiful ceiling in there. I think the tonal range of it all blends in. The only suggestion for this one that I would make, and I know it's part of the scene, but I felt that it distracted, is the lights, you know, the overhead lights. I would have taken those out and really made that central piece of the ceiling is the hero. The lights, you know, I talk about hero and the support and the secondary supports to an image. And I think that those lights don't add that secondary support to your image. The hero is the pattern and the tonal range and the detail. Again, the lighting on this mask or the statue I thought was well handled. It's got some good play of light and dark and certainly well handled in its processing because of the tonal range. Again, a distractor for me, I looked at on the left-hand side is just those little bits of what I call the coppery colour. I would have toned those down by brushing in more of a colour, picking up a colour from your background and just brushing it in to take that away. I do like this. It's very illustrative. It gives a story to me of light and dark. Very illustrative in its nature, and I thought it was beautifully crafted and processed. I like this image. You know, there's that pop of red colour. I looked at it and I thought, yep, it's sharp. It's got detail in there. It's got a mystery in the background. You know, it's a capture of a moment in time. I looked at this image and I thought, oh, that's interesting with all the detail and looking around. I thought the capture of either the rice or the grain that's in that tray. I looked at it first and I thought, oh, is that processed in? That's just how my eye works sometimes, or my thoughts. But I thought it was a good capture. I would have done a square crop on this because I feel the poles on the right-hand side don't add to the story. The main support, if you look at this image, the support is the woman. The hero is the woman, and the support actor is the child, and then the surroundings. So I would have cropped that out on the right-hand side. If I really wanted to go for border control, I would have looked at that pole down on the left-hand side. But a good travel photography. Interesting pattern. Certainly looked at it. The colours in it are beautiful. You know, I looked at it and I think our sandstone, and I'm assuming it's sandstone, is just beautiful to look at. And Mother Nature is just, she's just magnificent in what she produces. So I thought a lovely abstract patterned image. Interesting image. I looked at it and I was trying to think, now where is this? I was trying to think what part of the world. My suggestion on this would have been I would have flipped it so that with the clothes line, it just gives you a different angle because you're looking right going to left, and just to give a different perspective to it. But, you know, well handled in just capturing a beautiful landscape. I was trying to figure out where this one, it looks like Russell Falls, but I could be totally wrong. As I said, I have been...
It is Russell Falls. Russell Falls.
But yeah, that's sorry, because I've seen so much of Australia and New Zealand in my day job. You know, I've been very spoilt for landscape. So I look at it and I think, oh, is that where it is? The capture of the water, the stillness of the water is well captured. I would have done maybe a little bit more of a crop on the left-hand side just to give a little bit more focus on the water. The foliage on the left-hand side doesn't need to be there, but again, that's my eye. I like the play of light that you've got on the moss in the foreground as well. And to me, I think the greens work well. I don't capture greens very well, or maybe it's my eye, but I thought you've done a great capture of that. Beautiful image as far as the tonal range. I love the white ghost gums in this. I think it just tells the story of our beautiful landscape. I was trying to, try and think where this is. It could be Karajini, it could be anywhere in the outback. And I just love the primary colours, the greens, and you've got the ochres. It's a simple image, yet a detailed image. And the square crop works well. No, thanks, Ron.
Sorry.
No, you're right. Simple, abstract image. I love the colour range on this and the tonal range. It just appeals to my eye. I do like that what you've done is blacked out around this window frame, and it really, the hero is that pattern of the window in the image. There's no other distractors, and that highlights that perfectly on that one. interesting. I looked at this and I thought, well, yeah, he's there with his mates or no friends. I thought the light handled on the boy, you can see it's subtle light both on his left arm and on the back of his neck. Probably a little bit too much processing in the sky, a bit too HDR, could be a little bit softer, but I thought that really is a nice image of just a young Tina just enjoying just being outside, and I thought that was captured. A couple of little distractors. I thought that red that's on the right hand side, I would take that out, and a couple of little white spots in the water. I may have tried a flip, but that may not have worked because I sort of, when you look at it, to me, I look straight to the right and then I'm thinking, oh, I'll go over to the left. I know that goes against convention because Europeans, Western society, we do read left and right, but sometimes my eye looks to the right. Well, who knows now? I've got two new eyes. I may have to change how I view the world. But yeah, I do think that's a simple moment in time.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. That was the last image in our colour digital image competition. I shall now go through your choices. Let's go to drum roll. Here is... Okay, these are the Silver/Credit Awards. This one is Birds from My Backyard by Robin Moon. Congratulations, Robin. You're muted.
Thank you. I am, of course I'm muted.
Unmuted now.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, I captured all of those over the period of time that we were around, either in the backyard or out on, standing out in the street looking like a silly woman with my lens. Yeah.
Okay, this is from Sue Schultz. I don't know if she's online tonight. No, one of our local members. And obviously it's a very blue-tongued lizard. It's a good capture.
The Sarah Lee tongue.
That's right, yeah. Ian Woodforth, from his backyard in your garden. Is that right, Ian?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a mint or what is that flower?
It's called a cat's whisker.
Okay.
Okay. And did you put a like a dark card behind it, or did you do that in post-processing?
No, it's a black tracksuit behind it, and the actual flower is photo stacked. It's about 20 or 30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought so with the sharpness of it. Yeah.
Very good. Well done.
Thank you.
Kushla, Gym Junkie. I like your Zoom presentation on your iPad. I think that was quite clever.
Thanks, Ron. Just a collection of everything that one might get up to during the course of a day in isolation.
Yes.
Perhaps. Thanks, Sandra.
It's pretty hard hitting those exercise balls with the golf club, though.
Yeah. Builds good muscles, Tim.
I thought it was styled.
Thank you.
And we have from Vera, obviously scanning a few Kodachrome slides. I think that was probably Graham doing the slide scanning. Was it, Graham?
It could be, yes. Boxes of them. Yeah.
We know where to come to borrow the slide scanner.
Yeah.
And another one by Ian Woodforth in his backyard. You've obviously got a collection of you're feeding all the local wildlife, Ian.
Backyard, that's right.
And another one from the studio by Graham.
I didn't mean to put the colour one in too, but it looks good in colour.
Yeah. And Kushla, Solitude. And I like the converging lines of the
Yep.
seats. It's very, very good. I like that.
Is that
Very good.
Barangaroo or where's?
No, it's down at the park in Pyrmont. What do
Okay.
they call? Yeah, just down on the waterfront there, looking across to the overseas terminal. Yeah, and it was just late afternoon, just a very quiet time in the park. So yeah.
I think the sunburst through the trees very well handled.
Yeah, thank you. A challenge.
It wouldn't have been easy.
And Maribi, tell us about this. Is there Maribi or she?
Here in the neighborhood, all the houses that have children has handled this kind of teddies in the windows as a way to encourage the children to be at home or to be safe or whatever. And so I captured, there is actually 2 shots that I put together.
Yep.
Okay, so the window on the left and the window on the right, is it the same or is it?
The same window, yeah. I flipped it.
And you just
Yeah,
flipped it?
just flipped it. Yep.
That's good. I like the balance with the 2 Elmos looking inwards. It's very, very good, Maribi.
Like a bookend.
Thank you.
And Pamela, the non-NBN Pamela.
Yeah, I was busy eating all these nuts.
I thought it might have been you were going nuts from the end.
No, I've already gone nuts. Long time ago.
Nice neutral palette.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra.
Great depth of field and detail.
Mm,
Pamela, you did well.
thank you, Ron.
And Mr. Moon, the morning light.
That's an infrared shot. So that's why it's a little bit spooky and a bit unusual. So that's our backyard with the light just hitting the wall of the adjoining neighbours and then bouncing around on the plants we've got.
I didn't think it was infrared, Tim. That's because I was more illustrative. Well done.
Yeah, no, I went to town with 3D light.
That's gorgeous. Just stunning, Tim.
Yeah.
It's a nice colour palette. So
Yes. Yeah.
And another one by Jan Amato, who is one of our country members up the North Coast. And Rick America, is you on tonight, Rick? No.
No, he's a new man. He's got a pacemaker in.
Has he?
Ooh.
Yep. So he's just recovering from that.
Okay. So this is must be Point Lobos. So that it might be in the US somewhere, or I don't know. Doesn't ring a bell anywhere in Australia.
That's where Western photographed and Ansel Adam.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it on the border of the US and Vancouver?
Just south of San Francisco.
Oh, okay, too far north.
Okay. And Sandor.
Yeah, that's Divai beach, and it's just evening shot.
Very good.
Just capturing the moment. That's
What camera and lens is that with, Sandor?
actually, it was a long time ago. It was about 5 or 6 years ago. It was definitely a wide angle. It was either my previous Canon 7D or the current or the previous Fujifilm camera with a wide angle like 10 to 12 millimeters.
Yeah, it's got that Fujifilm color about it.
Yeah, maybe it was with the Fujifilm. I'm not sure if it was with the X-T1, X-T2, but definitely not the recent X-T3, maybe the X-T2.
Okay, we're going to move on to the Merit Gold Awards. And the first image is by Suzanne Nelson. Nice image, Suzanne. Well done.
Lovely.
Ron. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Sandra.
It's a beautiful image, Suzanne.
Thank you. It just I was struggling with the subject matter because I, pretty much stayed at home during lockdown, and so I kind of was coming up with stuff, and so yeah, that was actually obviously the keys. I thought, I need some big keys, and then I remembered I'd bought some in Italy. God knows why. So then I was taking photos of the keys, and so yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah. So thank you.
Great shot, Suzanne.
Thanks, Kushla.
And Sandor, is that your daughter?
Yeah, that's my daughter's school project. Actually, my other daughter's school project, so the older ones. And I thought that this really explains the isolation or the self-quarantine type of thing. Yeah, so the project was about memories, and I think that was just self-explanatory in a way.
It's very, very good. I like that. It certainly tells a very, very lockdown story of your daughter sort of gazing off and thinking about all the past things that she's done. It's very good. I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
Pamela, COVID Scrabble.
Well, I've been winning all the games with myself. Yeah, a lot of cheating going on though.
This is great. I love this.
Oh, thanks, Robert.
Very, very clever, Pamela.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw it, I laughed. I thought it was very
really
good.
creative.
Thank you.
And this one's one of mine. One of my.
Oh, well done, Ron.
Tried to do a little bit more arty with some stuff while I was in lockdown. So this is.
You kept your tulips in the fridge for a while.
Yeah, kept the tulips in the fridge.
Yeah, beautiful.
And the pot is a brass flower vase that Carol got in Turkey about 15 or 20 years ago. So,
Beautiful, Ron.
I put a textured background on it as well. So yeah,
I noticed that. Yeah.
Bit of Photoshop
that works well.
fun. Bit of Photoshop fun. And the daughter.
Yeah, the sacrificial child again.
She'll never move
I slowed
out,
the shutter
Robin.
speed down to, I can't remember what the shutter speed was here. I can't see the metadata, but I slowed it down a little bit in comparison to the other one. So
It looks like a veil.
Yeah,
a veil. Veil.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a veil. Yeah.
What-
I think it's
what,
about a quarter of a second or something. So.
And what number in the 40 was that? Because the hair's not wet on top.
No, well, it must have hit her. It must have been early on in the process, I think.
Yeah, I reckon.
So, yeah, and hit her right on the front of the forehead where I had the pin, which I think I've photoshopped out. I can't remember. I had the pin sticking up on the front of the head. I didn't know how else to do it, but anyway, it seemed to work.
I'm so going to do this to my children every Saturday.
You can get the little water bombs from the the Chinese $2 store.
Yeah, I love the shadow too on her chest there.
Yeah, the shadow down here looks really.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Awesome. Yep, the water shadow. Yep.
So did you light it with? Was it sunlight, or were you lighting it with the flash?
It would have been for that picture. It would have been morning light, I guess, because that gets there, and I'm against the back window, and I think we hung something black up on the back window, and we had to move fairly fast because the shade was coming across on the right as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So we don't get sun for very long in our backyard. It lasts for about half an hour in the mornings, and that's about it. So. And so we had to work with what we had.
Excellent.
10 a.m. for your planning, Ron.
Yeah.
And another one by Suzanne.
Yeah, lovely.
It
Thank
is.
you. Thanks. It was I was actually I just walked around the next street, which has liquid ambers up and down it, and I thought, I saw them so often. So I took my camera out the other day and was just playing with multiple exposure in my camera. So all the shots were in camera.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so it was very easy to do. I actually think after having done it for quite some time and taken a lot of shots, I've decided that you get far. I think I prefer to actually create it myself in Photoshop rather than creating it in camera, because
Okay.
there's an option actually to save. You can either just save the multiple exposures or save the individual files, which I did both. And I would always in future save both the shots and the combined exposures, because that way you've got more freedom. So
what camera is that to capture it?
So that was on, I've got a Canon 5D Mark IV. So you put it on a P setting and you go into the multiple exposure section, and you've got a couple of choices. So there's one which actually does the average exposure. So you can use that. There's another one which is additive. That's a little bit trickier to play with. And then you've got another one which takes the dark or the brightest area of the image and then works out the exposures like that. So it took a little bit of fiddling to figure out which one I preferred to use at that point. And so this was certainly with the average exposure, or it actually, the first shot sets the exposure for the remainder of the shots. And so you have to think about what you shoot first and last, which it is layering, but it's also about things that are dark and light. So you get quite different effects. It was fun.
Jackie Rankin does that a lot, Suzanne.
Pardon?
Jackie Rankin does that a lot.
Oh, okay.
That's where I learnt the technique of her. She does that quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of fun. So, and I think the more you do it, the more you really kind of work it out in your head as to what, by the time I'd finished, I was sort of getting it down pat as to what I should shoot first and what I should shoot last and how many shots, because I can do up to, I think it's 9 exposures in camera.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was great fun.
I used to do that with film. I used to do a double exposure with film.
Oh, yep.
Which was interesting because you had to release the sprocket and then wind the camera on.
Oh.
Hope the film didn't move.
Yeah. Wow, that's stressful.
And fortunately, I had another, and I used to do it like if there was a church at a wedding, and I could get up on the back balcony and take a wide shot of the church, and then I'd put that camera body away, and at some stage later during the reception I'd get the bride and groom, and I'd have a lens cap with a hole in it, and so that basically allowed me to superimpose them on top using the same image. So.
Oh, right.
Cool.
So Sandra, is Jackie Rankin a Canon shooter too?
Yeah. Yep.
So it must be a Canon thing.
Yeah, you can get, like what Sue was talking about, you can use the different methods. And what I like what you said, Suzanne, is that you get your 2 images and then I'll do a blended image. Because like I did one that had the grass and then an old cook's hut, and I was able to use those 2 images in different ways, but I still had the double exposure through it.
Yeah, it's good. I actually think doesn't the D850 do multiple exposures, Tim?
Never tried. I think I'm about to practice.
Whole new world opening up.
It was really, I've always, I tried to do it once and I didn't, I just guessed at how to do it and I just bombed out. So I just quickly Googled it just before I went out to shoot, and I went, oh, that's really simple, because the camera instructions don't really make much sense in the manual, and so I just looked it up, and it's really simple. But I'm sure I recall Liz trying to do it in the D850.
Yeah, the D850 does do it.
Yeah, it's certainly a fun thing to experiment with.
Time for a workshop, Dallas.
Oh, I'd have to go through the manual again, Tim.
Yeah,
Okay.
check it out. Check it out if your camera can do it.
Okay. Michael Brown.
Well, this is indeed a very genuine isolation situation. For most days, we conducted a little school for my 6-year-old grandson, where we went through drawings with a lot of learning about words, particularly fun words like burp or rat. But I did consult with our club president as whether I could enter this, because that's obviously a photo of me. But I set the camera up, all the angles, the flash, did the post-processing. But I do have an assistant who, at my instructions, was pressing the shutter.
Well,
But
that's all right. That as long as you set it all up, you know, you can have a remote control, or you can have, say, take the picture now.
well, that was it, and my good wife cooperated in that regard. So,
Mrs. Remote Control.
Yeah, that's right.
control. Otherwise, my hands were a bit occupied, Tim, too.
But the thing that impressed me with this shot, Michael, is you've got the light balanced off the laptop screen. You know, the exposure there and the exposure to the rest of the image is spot on. So that was well done.
Flicker in the laptop screen.
My limited composting skills came into effect with the computer screen. There was a fair degree of reflection, and in photo fact that was actually taken at a similar Zoom school, I think, the previous day.
Oh, okay.
Managed to move it into that image too.
Yeah.
So it creates what was going on, but there was a little bit of my limited Photoshop skills. It's probably the extreme limit of my Photoshop skills coming out in that photo.
You've done well.
Very well done. Excellent.
Good. Thank you.
Right, and I think we have one more, which was from Louise Gambler with her treescape. I have no idea where that is, and Louise is not online tonight, so we'll have to find out some other time.
She did do some flying over Lake Eyre, so it could be on the way to Lake Eyre.
Yeah. And Triangles by Dallas. Very, I love the geometry and the colour palette on that one.
Yes,
Well done, Dallas.
Thank you. Yeah. For anybody, that's at the Four Seasons in Sydney, in the foyer.
Ah, excellent.
Beautiful lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was happy with that.
Well done.
I can't tell how it bleeds, but is it a square crop?
Yeah, it is a square crop, and basically it's nearly straight out of camera.
Yep, fantastic. That D850, fantastic.
Actually.
Oh, there's double exposure Canon stuff.
Well, we won't go there.
Yeah, watch it.
Well, okay.
Posting anything multiple exposures, Tim Moon.
All right. Okay. So that's the end of the merits. So we now have a drum roll for the awards. So let's go to the Judge's Choice Award for Colour. Any guesses?
Suzanne, I'd go.
Suzanne Nelson.
Suzanne, yeah.
Brown.
Oh,
Judge's
well done.
choice.
Fantastic.
Can I explain the choice on that one is that my style does go to the creative, and I really appreciated the creative work by some of the photographers in there. But I looked at this image and I thought it really reflected a moment in time in the situation we were faced. Yep. And that's why I looked at it from the human element, that this is what we were looking at.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Michael Brown.
Yes.
No, Mrs. Brown.
Mrs.
Brown's award.
My assistant, who wasn't paid a lot for efforts.
The Brown family.
All these very famous photographers, they're just like art directors. They don't actually press a button anymore. They have their camera operators and light operators.
To instruct people on how to
That's
do it.
right.
Now, is this your first Judge's Choice, Mike?
No.
No? All right. Okay. It's not so significant.
And the Members' Choice Colour Digital Image Award goes to Peter Hammer.
Mr.
Hammer.
Yeah, I
Well
He's got
done.
the double.
Yeah. So here endeth the competition for June. Back to you,
Fantastic.
Tim. At the sports desk or at the New Zealand desk.
Doesn't matter. Yes. We're having a bit of an echo issue here at the moment, so I'm trying to just figure out what I'm hearing. So I'll just mute my dear wife again.
Okay.
You're a game man.
That's right, a very game man. Well, thank you very much, Sandra. That was a good night. Hope you enjoyed looking at some different images.
I did. They were beautiful images. Some of them were just stunning.
We've got our fingers crossed for the Australia Cup. We've thrown in a good set of images for that competition with the FCC. So we'll see how we go this year.
APS, you mean?
What's
Australian
that?
Photographic Society.
Oh, sorry, the APS Australia Cup. That's right. I keep on getting. It's a bit confusing now because APS are now hosted on that My Photo Club website, which is also where the FCC are. So it's the same website.
Thanks, Sandra. You did a great job. Nice and quick too.
Yeah, just short and sweet. I just don't muck around. I go straight to the point.
That's how we need it. None of this mucking around.
Yeah, take a step to the right. Oh, hold on a minute. There's a cliff. It doesn't matter if you fall off.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thanks again. And
Thank you.
And I'm waving from behind my tree to say goodbye.
and for those coming while watching, we'll see you on Sunday.
Yeah, I'll just see how it goes.
Night, everyone.
Okay, good night. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks. Well done.